The chandeliers glistened like frozen fireworks, each crystal catching the light and scattering it across the ballroom in glittering arcs. Laughter swirled with the music, tuxedos gleamed, gowns shimmered, and the air pulsed with the kind of magic only prom night could hold. For so many students, this night was the grand finale of their youth, a chance to shine before stepping into the unknown future. For Emma, it was supposed to be the night she stopped feeling invisible. She had spent weeks preparing. Every dollar she made at her weekend diner job was carefully folded away until she finally had enough for her dream dress, a soft, satin blue gown that seemed to shimmer like water under the light. It wasn't designer. It wasn't custom. But to Emma, it was perfect. She had curled her hair with trembling fingers, painted her nails in pale silver, and rehearsed a dozen smiles in the mirror until one finally felt real. When she stepped into the ballroom that night, her heart soared. For once, she wasn't just the quiet girl from the outskirts of town, the one who kept her head down and books close. For once, she felt seen. And then, in a single cruel act, everything shattered. The boy she trusted, the one who had asked her to prom with a bouquet of wildflowers and words dipped in charm, grabbed the hem of her dress and yanked. A ripping sound split the music, loud enough to silence laughter and freeze dancers mid-step. Satin tore apart, revealing far more than Emma ever wanted. Her gasp caught in her throat, and before she could even move, the laughter began. It started as snickers, then grew into roaring howls. Students doubled over, clutching their stomachs, pointing, and whispering. Phones came up, screens recording her humiliation. Emma stood frozen, clutching the torn fabric to her chest, her face blazing red, her eyes brimming with tears. The boy who had once looked at her with kindness now grinned with cruelty, basking in the attention his betrayal had bought him. And in that moment, Emma thought she might drown in shame. But then, across the ballroom, her father's eyes found hers. He stood near the entrance in his beige suit, his presence quiet but commanding. His jaw tightened, his fists curled, but he didn't storm forward. He didn't need to. His look alone was enough to pierce through Emma's despair. A look that said, "This is not the end of your story. Stand tall. You are stronger than this." Emma's tears spilled, but she lifted her chin. Clutching the shredded satin, she walked past the boy, past the gawking crowd, past the laughter that echoed like daggers. Each step was agony, but each step was also defiance. She pushed open the ballroom doors and disappeared into the night, her heels clicking against the marble floor, a sound that somehow felt like both breaking and becoming. Before I take you further into Emma's story, I want to pause. If you're here, listening to this tale, it's because stories matter to you, stories of pain, hope, and transformation. If you believe in the power of stories that touch the soul, I invite you to subscribe to SoulTouch Stories. This is where we breathe life into experiences like Emma's, reminding us all that even in darkness, light can rise. Now, let's return to her journey. The night air was bitter against her tear-streaked cheeks. Emma sat on the stone steps outside the hall, hugging her arms around herself. She wanted to vanish. She wanted to erase the entire evening. But beneath the humiliation, something stirred. Anger. Resolve. A tiny, stubborn flame that refused to die out. The following weeks tested her in ways she had never imagined. The video of her humiliation spread online, twisted into cruel memes, captions dripping with mockery. Hallways at school became gauntlets of whispers and stares. Her classmates called her torn Emma behind her back, and sometimes even to her face. Each day was a battle to hold her head high when all she wanted was to disappear. She cried often, late at night, when no one could hear. She wondered if she would ever feel normal again, or if this humiliation would cling to her forever. But every time despair threatened to drown her, she remembered her father's eyes in that ballroom. His look had carried something powerful, something unshakable. So she decided she would not let them win. Emma began to rebuild herself, piece by piece. She joined the debate team, though her voice trembled the first time she spoke into the microphone. At first, her classmates laughed at her stumbles. But slowly, she found her rhythm. The words that once caught in her throat now flowed with fire. She spoke about justice, resilience, and dignity, topics she knew intimately. The same voice they once mocked became the voice that silenced opponents with arguments sharp as steel. She also began volunteering at the community center. There, she met younger kids who struggled with bullying and self-doubt. Emma sat with them, listened to their stories, and shared pieces of her own. She taught them to see their worth, to believe they were more than the insults thrown at them. And in teaching them, she discovered her own healing. But the boy who humiliated her? He thought the memory would fade, thought that his laugh would echo louder than her tears. Yet, as the months passed, the tide turned. His cruel act no longer looked like power. It looked like cowardice. It looked like weakness. And Emma? She was no longer just torn Emma. She was Emma, the girl who refused to be broken. Time passed, and the night of humiliation became less of a wound and more of a scar. And scars, Emma realized, are not just reminders of pain. They are proof of survival. Then came graduation day. The gymnasium buzzed with energy. Rows of proud parents filled the bleachers. Students fidgeted in their caps and gowns, whispering about summer plans and futures that stretched wide before them. Emma adjusted her tassel, her heart thudding as she heard her name called. But it wasn't just for her diploma. She was being honored with a leadership award for resilience, for courage, for rising when life tried to knock her down. As she walked across the stage, the crowd erupted into applause. Her classmates, once cruel, now stood to cheer. Some clapped with tears in their eyes, others with admiration written across their faces. And then, she saw him. The boy who tore her dress sat slumped in the audience, his expression hollow. Regret shadowed his features. But Emma didn't need his apology. She had outgrown the need for it. She wasn't standing on that stage for him. She was standing there for herself. For the girl who once cried on the stone steps outside the ballroom, and for the woman she had become. Her father's eyes glistened with pride. In that moment, Emma knew the humiliation of prom night no longer defined her. What defined her was the courage to rise, to rebuild, to transform. Before I share the closing of Emma's story, let me gently remind you, if her journey moved you, if you felt the weight of her pain and the triumph of her strength, please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to SoulTouch Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing tales that heal, inspire, and remind us of the resilience within us all. Emma would go on to attend college, studying psychology to help others who felt broken by cruelty. She carried her scar not as shame, but as a badge of honor. When people asked her about the night of her prom, she no longer flinched. She smiled softly and said, "That was the night everything changed." Because sometimes, the night you think will destroy you becomes the very night that begins to build you. And Emma's story, her transformation, is proof of one eternal truth: humiliation may wound you, but it does not define you. What defines you is your courage to rise.